Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Abhayam Sattva Samashtir, Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi, Dhanandamascha Yagnascha, Svadhyayastapa Arjavam, Ahimsa Satyama Krodas, Tyagaha Shantirapeshanam, Dayabhuteshvaloputvam, Madhavam Rera Chapalam, Tejaha Kshamajritihi Shocham, Adroho Natimanita, Bhavanti Sampadam Devim, Abhijatasya Bharata.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation and spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of Vedas, austere simplicity, non-violence, ruthlessness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, living entities, freedom, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor, the transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature.
Yash?
Dambodharpabhamanascha Krodaha Parushyameva Agyanam Chabhijatasya Parthasampadamasurim.
Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, hardness, and harshness and ignorance. These qualities belong to those who dominate nature or son of Partha.
Devi Sampad Vimokshaya Nibadnadyaya Surimata Mashacho Sampadam Devim Abhijato Pandava.
The transcendental qualities are conducive of liberation. Sorry, Prabhuji. Whereas the demonic qualities make the bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities.
Dvobhuta Sargalokesmin Deva Asura Evacha Deva Vistara Shaha Prokta Asuram Parthameshrinu.
O son of Partha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called the divine and the other demonic. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear me of the demonic.
Pravritim cha nivritim cha jana na vedurasuraha na shacham na pichacharo na satyam teshu vidyate.
Those who are demonic do not know what it is to be done and what it is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them.
Asatyam apratishtam te jagad ahuranishvaram aparaspara kim anyat kama hetukam.
They say that this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust.
Etam drishyam avashtabhya nashtatmano lipya budayaha prabhavanti ugra karmanaha kshayaya jagatohitaha.
Following such conclusions, the demonic who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence engage in unbeneficial, horrible work meant to destroy the world.
Kamamashritya dushpuran puram dambamana madanvitaha mohadgritva sadgrahan pravartante shuchivrataha.
Taking shelter in insuitable lust and
Insatiable. It's okay,
insatiable
Mataji.
lust and absorbed in the conceit of pride and false prestige, the Dominic thus illusioned and always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent.
Chintam aparimeyam cha pralayantam upashritaha kamapa parama etavad iti nishtitehi ashapasha saterbada kamakroda parayanaha ehante kamabogartam anyayenarta shanchayam.
They believe that the sense is in the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of the life, their anxiety is immeasurable, bound by the network of hundreds and thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger. They secure money by illegal means for sense of gratification.
Idam adya maya labdam imam prapsye manoratham idam asti idamapi me bhavishyati pranardana asomaya hataha shratrur hanishya chaparannapi ishvaroham maham bhogi sidoham balavansuki adyo bijanavan asmi konyosti sadrushomaya yakshyedasyami modishya iti agyana vimohitaha.
The Dominic and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifice. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance.
Anekachitta vabranta mohajala samarvrataha prasaktaha kamabhogeshu patanti narakeshu.
Thus perplexed by various anxieties and bound by the network of illusions, they become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and fall down into hell.
Atmasambhavitaha stabda danamana medanvitaha yajante nama yagneste dambena vidipurvakam.
Self-complacent and always impudent, deluded, and wealth and false prestige, they sometimes proudly perform sacrifices in name only without following any rules or regulations.
Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodam chasram shritaha mamatma paradeshu pradavishanto pyasuyakaha.
Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others as blasphemy against the real religion.
Tanaham dvishatah kuran samsareshu naradaman kshipami ajasram ashobhan asurishva eva yonishu.
The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kanuf, performs act conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. Yes.
Asurim yonim apana muda janmani janmani mama prapyeva konteya tato yanti edamam gatim.
Sorry, can you lift the screen up a bit, please? Attaining repeated. The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of... I've read that one.
So you need to read number 20, Mataji. The translation for 20.
Thank you. Attain repeated birth amongst the species of dominic life, O son of Kunti, such person can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence.
Trividam narakasyedyam dvaram nashanamaatmanaha kamaha krodastata lobas tasmadetat trayam chaja.
There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give this up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul.
Itar vimuktaha konteya tamodvareshtribir naraha acharati atmanaha shreyas tato yati param gatim.
The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs act conducive of self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination.
Yaha shastra vidim utsrijya vartate kamakarataha nasasiddhim vapnoti nachukam na param gatim.
He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination.
Tasmat shastram prananam te karya karya vyavastito gyatva shastra vidanoktam karma kartum miharasi.
One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. Hare Krishna, forgive me for all the mistakes I've done.
No, Mataji, you are brave to spontaneously recite, and you did well. And I hope we didn't put you on the spot too much and you were not too nervous. That's fine. There's no problem. Thank you, Yash, for your Sanskrit. Wonderful recitation.
Thank you.
So today, I understand that Amritananda Prabhu did yesterday's class and he did verse number 10. So today we're doing 11 and 12. I hope I'm right. Just so let me share my slides. Wonderful. So We'll start off by saying the Mangala Charanam praise like we normally do. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastachadeshatadine. So we are reading the Lord's description of the demoniac qualities. The Lord has spent a short space, a few verses, actually 2 verses, describing the divine qualities. But Lord has gone into great length describing the demonic qualities. In particular, in these verses, he's describing the consciousness of the demoniac. And hopefully we do not recognize too much in that in our own consciousness. But that is one of the purposes of the Lord speaking like this. So Prabhupada in one verse says, Krishna is the supreme pure. If we want to serve the supreme pure, we must also become completely pure. That means becoming free from all demoniac qualities. So the verse 11 to 12 today. Chintam apiri meyam cha palayantam upashrita kamopabhoga parama etavad iti nishchitaha ashapasha satai bhadaha kama krodha parayanaha yante kama bhogartam anya yenartha sanchayan. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. They believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable, bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires, and absorbed in lust and anger. They secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The demoniac accept that the enjoyment of the senses is the ultimate goal of life, and this concept they maintain until death. They do not believe in life after death, and they do not believe that one takes on different types of bodies according to one's karma or activities in this world. Their plans for life are never finished, and they go on preparing plan after plan, all of which are never finished. We have personal experience of a person of such demoniac mentality who, even at the point of death, was requesting the physician to prolong his life for 4 years more because his plans were not yet complete. Such foolish people do not know that a physician cannot prolong life even for a moment. When the notice is there, there is no consideration of the man's desire. The laws of nature do not allow a second beyond what is destined to enjoy. The demoniac person who has no faith in God or the supersoul within himself performs all kinds of sinful activities simply for sense gratification. He does not know that there is a witness within his heart. The supersoul is observing the activities of the individual soul. As stated in the Upanishads, there are two birds sitting in one tree. One is acting and enjoying or suffering the fruits of the branches, and the other is witnessing. But one who is demoniac has no knowledge of Vedic scripture, nor has he any faith. Therefore, he feels free to do anything for sense enjoyment, regardless of the consequences. So the verse again, they believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, the anxiety is immeasurable, bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires, and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. This verse sounds so relevant to modern society. Even in our own lives or our past lives, we can recognize and we can identify with this consciousness. Practically most people today, they live under the conception that happiness comes from gratification of the senses. So the more the senses can be gratified, the more happiness we can get. But we know from the Vedic literatures that the senses can never be satisfied. They can never be satiated. So what happens? The people, they try, and because they can't succeed, they become full of anxiety. And as this verse says, they become bound in a network of thousands of desires, absorbed in lust and anger. Because we have so many senses, the ears, they want to be gratified by hearing something. The eyes, they want to be gratified by seeing something. The tongue wants to be gratified by tasting something. The smell wants to be gratified by smelling something. Touch, we want to touch something. And all of these senses are wanting to be gratified. The sense of smell wants to smell. The sense of tongue wants to taste. And the environment we are living in, the advertisers try to do as much as possible to agitate each of these senses. So the poor jiva, the living entity, one who is of demoniac nature, they are always full of anxiety, immeasurable. In the Bhagavatam, it is said, just like the waves of the river are continuously entering the ocean, one after the other, after the other, after the other. The desires of the living entity are like that. They are constantly, persistently, non-stop coming. And the desires are there, but sometimes the means to fulfill the desires are not there. So what will the living entity do? They will resort to illegal means to gratify the senses. This is so typical of modern society. So the demons believe that to satisfy the senses, that's the goal of life. And what does the devotee or the divine people believe? That the satisfaction of the senses of Krishna is the goal of life. And the devotee knows, if I try to satisfy my senses, there's no happiness. That is just ungratified desires. But when I satisfy the senses of Krishna, when Krishna is pleased, I become pleased. When you water the root of the tree, all of the twigs, the leaves, everything become pleased. There's one story told by one of our devotees, Bhagavat Purana Prabhu. He says how, when he first went to India, they gave him the service to cook. So he found himself in India with temperatures of 36 to 40 degrees outside. Coupled with that, being in a kitchen where there was heat, and he was just feeling it intolerable. And he put the fan on, then he increased the speed, then he put it top speed, but still he was feeling so hot. Then in the corner, he saw one picture of Krishna. And he said, instead of trying to satisfy the senses, let me see if I can satisfy Krishna's senses. So he saw a little fan, peacock fan. And he took that peacock fan and he started to fan Krishna. The photo of Krishna. And he was just doing that. And he said, suddenly, he just felt this coolness come over his body. We know a similar story in the pastimes of the Pandava. I won't get into the whole story. But Durvasa Muni and his disciples, how they were feeling hungry. Krishna came, took one grain from the pot, the Akshay Patra, tasted it, and immediately everyone felt satisfied. So this is the secret. The demoniac people, they will never surrender to Krishna. And therefore their senses will always trouble them. But the devotee just understands the simple fact. So therefore, yoga, it means to control the senses. Sometimes the senses are called indriya. So the real purpose of yoga, Prabhupada says, these senses are there like serpents, always biting. But yoga means just like a snake charmer charms the senses. Yoga means to control the senses. That's Astanga Yoga, the mechanical process. And Bhakti Yoga means engage the services in Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 6th canto, 4th chapter, 2nd verse, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, as long as one is situated in duality on the sensual platform, gross or subtle, realization of the original personality of Godhead is impossible. Sevan mukhi I jivado swayam eva spurati adaha. When one engages his senses in the service of the Lord, specifically when one engages the tongue in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and tasting only Krishna prasadam with a spirit of service, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is revealed. So the divine and demoniac, in one sense, it's just the consciousness changes. One's the consciousness of enjoying for oneself, the other is a consciousness of serving Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, in context of speaking on this particular subject matter, would often quote the 5th canto and the 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the 5th canto, the 5th chapter, describes Lord Rishabhadev's teachings to his son. Lord Rishabhadev, he was an incarnation of the Lord. And his activities are described in chapters, I think, 4, 5, and 6 of the 5th canto. Very, very powerful instructions. So I'll just read now some of those instructions, and then maybe we can have some discussion or speak about it a bit more. Lord Rishabhadev told his sons, he had a few sons, so one day he called his sons and he gave them instructions. So he said to them, "My dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded the human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever." So the first thing Lord Rishabhadev told his sons, please, the human form of life is very special. All the other species of lives, like the animals, the dogs and the hogs, they are very much trained to enjoy the senses. But the human being is not meant for that. The human being is meant for what? Tapo divyam, he says. Human life is meant for austerity. One has to voluntarily perform austerity. And what happens when one performs austerity voluntarily? One's heart becomes purified. And one attains to the eternal position in life. And one transcends this material happiness, which is so flickering and temporary. So that's the very first instructions for any human being. Don't try to engage the services. Austerity means controlling the senses. The senses say, I want that, I want that, I want that. And you say no. With the understanding that the more one engages in the senses, the more we fall into the bodily concept of life. Therefore, human form of life is austerity. Srila Prabhupada says in one purport in the Bhagavatam, an easy life and Krishna consciousness do not go well together. We should never search for an easy life. One should restrain the senses. And then he goes on to say, one can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. When one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or wants to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not believe in any abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. And then he goes on to say in text number 4, when a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, what happens? He becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activities. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body, which although temporary is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it is not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself in the activities of sense gratification by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. This is the trap that people fall into. Because their consciousness is so much for sense gratification. This body is not designed for sense gratification. Like just take, for example, this one finger. How much of happiness can you get from this one finger? You can stroke it, you can pet it, you can put it in some warm water. But how much you can get? Someone just has to bang you with a hammer, so much of pain you can get. So the body is designed more for pain. Even the tongue. You want to eat something very relishable, some nice samosa. You eat one samosa, you're happy. You eat two, you may be a little happy. You eat three, you're starting to feel not so much. You try to eat 10 samosas, you can't. You eventually land up throwing up. So the body is not designed for sense gratification. The animals have more scope, but certainly the human body is not. So those who are intelligent, those who have gone to the scriptures, they'll have to take this one advice, not to endeavor. And endeavoring for sense gratification simply means more and more we fall into the bodily concept of life. One time, one person asked Srila Prabhupada, what is the reaction that one gets for engaging in illicit sex life? And Prabhupada gave a very simple answer. He said, they lose their chance to become Krishna conscious. Very simple but very profound answer. Because the more we engage in the sense gratification, the more we lose the opportunity for Krishna consciousness. So this is some warning for us, these verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Most of us, we are devotees practicing Krishna consciousness. So it may not apply much to us. But even in devotional service, when one is in devotional service, Srila Rupa Goswami, in the Nectar of Instruction, he gives this warning that what spoils a devotional service. And he says, Atyahara prayaschascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha lolyamcha sadbir bhakti vinaschati. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. 1. Eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than necessary. 2. Over-endeavoring for mundane things that are difficult to obtain. 3. Talking unnecessarily about mundane subjects matters. This again is sense gratification. The tongue, it has 2 functions. One, it likes to taste something, and secondly, it likes to vibrate. Vibrate means it likes to talk all sorts of prajalpa. 4, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. 5, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6, being greedy for mundane achievements. So Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar, he warns that indulgence, the subtle or gross indulgence, they both bring us down and it spoils our devotional service. So it is both a message to the demoniac and the devotees. So I'll stop here. It's almost 8:30. I'll take any questions, comments, realizations, reflections that anyone may have. Hare Krishna. Anyone's got any?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri
When,
Mataji.
when you were reading that purport, and it remind, you know how the living entity tries to satisfy itself through sense gratification, and it's just never satisfied. It does all these things.
Yeah.
It's like an addiction. It reminded of somebody who is addicted.
Yes.
They continue, but they're never satisfied, and then they resort to stealing money to feel that their addiction, and they're still never satisfied.
Yes.
This sort of striving for sense gratification, which you never reach, is like an addiction. So I was reflecting that maybe the cure for this addiction is to be addicted to Krishna Katha and addicted to what to the things that we are doing, because that is you once you get a taste for it, it's like that's the cure.
Definitely. Definitely. That's a nice realization. Yeah, it's an addiction. Prabhupada, sometimes one Prabhupada talks about it like a mirage in the desert. You're in the desert, you see, oh, there's water there, and you run. You get there, there's nothing. But you won't stop. You'll just keep running. It's sad. Yeah. But Prabhupada says this comes with training. To control the senses, one has to be trained from a young age. Therefore, the Vedic system is, the boys from a young age, they sent to Gurukul, and the Gurukul, they have to get up early. And training is required. Modern society, from the birth, the children are overindulged. Whatever you want, yes, you can have it. Mommy, I want to eat this. Yes, make it for you. Simply. Srila Prabhupada tells the story of his own spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was just a little boy, maybe 3 or 4 years old. One day, he took a mango and he ate it. And that mango, his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was keeping it for offering to the deity. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, not heavily, mildly, just mildly rebuked him. He said, you shouldn't have done that. That mango was meant for the deity first. This little boy, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Bimal Pashari, was then. He took a vow that never again in his whole life you will eat a mango. And even when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was older, sometimes some people will come and offer him a mango. We all know, those in Indian bodies, how mango is the king of fruit. Who doesn't wait to eat a mango? But when anyone would offer him a mango, he says, no, I'm an offender. I can't eat mango. So it takes training. It takes training to learn how to control the senses. And modern civilization, the training is just not there. Just not there, unfortunately. So let's see if there's any comments now. Emma Mataji is saying, it is not possible to renounce all desires. The only way to renounce our enjoying spirit is to replace it with serving spirit to Krishna. Absolutely, Emma Mataji, thank you. That is the secret. We don't try to restrain our senses. The former example is like, I got this phone. If I leave the phone up, down, man is empty, still restless. But if I leave the phone and immediately I pick up the pen, it's engaged in writing something, the hand won't be restless. So the bhakti process is to engage, and that's the right. Everything belongs to Krishna, so it should be engaged in his service. Any other reflections, comments, realizations? We have to be reminded all the time, isn't it? And reading these verses, it just sobers us up. Sometimes we can get carried away. All right, everyone. If there's no further questions or comments, thank you so much for attending. All glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah. Thank
Gaura
you,
Bhakta
Hare
Prabhuji.
Vrinda
Krishna.
ki
Thank you,
jai.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Prabhuji.
for the
Hare
nice